Well, it's obvious that I'm out of my league sitting up here with these guys. But let me share with you a brief story. 1994, found myself pastoring a large suburban Baptist church in the edge of Birmingham, Alabama. Having been a pastor for 35 years, saved as a lad of a boy, prayed for at the time I was in my mother's womb that God would call me to preach. Product of Southern Baptist Church, never known anything but church life. Pastored 5 consecutive Baptist churches for 35 years. 1994, found my wife and I hopelessly and helplessly estranged. We were total strangers. We were already emotionally divorced. We were living on opposite ends of a large, rambling Baptist pastorium, and we would not even speak to each other until we had to. Things had gotten very desperate. They didn't get there overnight, as you would imagine. We arrived at that place due to a lot of neglect, especially on my part. A lot of presumption, presuming upon God, presuming upon my wife, taking a lot of things for granted. Failure on my part to be the spiritual leader that I knew how to be and knew I ought to be, but refused to do. A lot of neglect. My wife warned me one day that if things didn't get any better after our son married, she was not going to go to church with me anymore. Came off of my son's wedding in Tennessee, and my wife fulfilled her promise, and she didn't go back to church with me that Sunday morning or Sunday night nor the following week. In fact, for the balance of that entire year, over 8 months, my wife refused to go to church with me. Every Sunday morning, I'd get up and get in my car and drive off to church where I would preach and do my thing. After I left, she would get in her car and drive across town to a smaller church of another denomination where she thought she wouldn't be recognized or any further source of embarrassment to either of us. And that's the way we spent about 8 months of Sundays. My people began to reason among themselves, and I listened to them thinking that the reason my wife wasn't with me in church was because she was sick. When I found out that that's what they were thinking, I let them think that. By my silence, I gave them the impression that I was a helpless martyr preacher, preaching faithfully on Sunday, and my wife wouldn't even come and hear her husband preach. And we lived under that lie for a long, long time. I became the great pretender, which is the unfortunate but accurate title of my testimony. I pretended that all was well in the Graham home when that was the furthest thing from the truth. Refusing to even speak to each other. When we did, it would erupt into horrible encounters. Very, very difficult encounters, one after another after another. The language that we used against each other was vicious language. It was language designed to hurt each other. It was demeaning language. It hurt. It was vicious. Anything you can think of to sum up those encounters that we had, your description would probably fall real short. That's the way we lived our life for a long, long time. I did not stop. You would think that somebody knowing what I've known and what I'd been exposed to over the years, that I would have stopped up short and dealt with this issue and got right with my God and with my wife. I wish I could tell you that I did, but I didn't. I just pressed on. I just kept on going, ignoring reality, refusing to deal with root problems in my life, and I just kept on going. In spite of all I've told you, God kept me up all night long one Saturday night in the early 70s and birthed a burden in my heart for real revival. That's the redeeming factor of the story. I wanted revival for my church, but I must admit to you guys painfully that I wanted it for the wrong motives. I wanted revival in my church because I knew it would make me look good. I didn't want it for the right motive. I also knew that when revival came, that I would be brought under some pressure that I wasn't willing to deal with. So I wasn't willing for the first wave of revival to sweep across my life. And yet I thought I wanted revival for my people. But the burden was good. The burden was genuine. And I had some great mentors and learned the truth about real revival. And out of that study where a revival became the mantelpiece of my life, I became acquainted with the Life Action Ministries and invited them to come to our church to conduct a crusade, 3-week crusade. We put it on the calendar for February of 1995. And 1994 was unwinding and unraveling like I just described to you, with our marriage literally hanging on by a thread, and that thread getting thinner and thinner every day. I was an angry man. I wasn't willing to admit how angry I was. Anger, as we've learned today, and the double first cousin to bitterness. I was struggling with all of that and going on preaching every Sunday, acting like everything was all right. Finally dawned on me I couldn't let this team come to our church for a revival without telling them the truth. So I called them. I was talking to Don Averill, who was with the team then, told him what was happening. Don prayed for me over the telephone. Got together with Brother Byron, the leadership of the team, and they decided they wanted to come on in view of the fact that I told them that there was no immorality or infidelity going on between the two of us, either of us, neither of us guilty of that. I'll never forget Don telling me on the telephone, long distance from Michigan, said, Don, if you can hold on till we get there, you'll have some people around you who can help you. I began to cling to that word. It was a word of hope. I had lost all hope that things could ever be different or any better. They invited me in the meantime to come and join them. One of their teams conducting a crusade like they do in our church. And my wife initially did not want to go. I knew she didn't. By this time, she didn't want to go anywhere with me. When I confronted her with the opportunity for us to go out to Texas for a Life Action Crusade before they came to our church in February, she was very, very resistant to the idea. The idea of going anywhere with me by this time was repugnant to her. But finally, she agreed. We went out to Texas. We checked into 2 separate motel rooms, a part of her criteria for being willing to go at all. In the Holiday Inn Express. I'm staying in the Holiday Inn Express this week. I love the place. I didn't love that first week. We were at 2 separate rooms. And we attended the worship service at the Birchman Baptist Church there where the Red Team was conducting the crusade. Wayne Davis was our counselor. Met with him every day. He loved me enough to tell me the truth. He held my feet to the fire. Challenged me if I'd begin to write a list out of the ways I'd wounded my wife over the years. I felt like I needed to do that, and I agreed to do that. And I began to work on that list, and it got longer and longer and longer until it was about 3 pages, single space, legal-size paper long, and it wasn't complete then. On Thursday night of that week, let me back up on the first night, my wife sitting beside me before church started, I said, honey, what's wrong? I could tell she's a little nervous. She said, Don, I won't get anything out of this if I have to sit by you. I said, I understand, honey, you do what you've got to do. So she got up, got her purse and her Bible, and went back across to the far side of the building. And it's as far away from me as she could get, and that's where she stayed, and me on this opposite end of the building for that whole time. And that's the way we were for a week on Thursday of that week. St. Clair preached on the word in Luke chapter 20. If you fall on that rock, the rock being Jesus, you'll be broken. But if the rock falls on you, you'll be ground to powder. I never heard a message like that anywhere under any circumstance. I never heard anybody preach on brokenness. The next morning, counseling with Wayne Davis, Wayne looked me in the face and said, Don, what's God saying to you during these days? I said, Wayne, that sermon last night, I never heard anything like that. God just riddled me, just drove me to the wall with overwhelming conviction.